Hello and welcome back to the Modern DT&I. In this video, I will introduce you to the layout and review a basic summary of the Modern DT&I concept. This will be a high-level introduction of a topic I've poured years of research into, so for a more detailed look at the concept, you can visit the About section of the Modern DT&I Facebook page or follow the link in the description. The Modern DT&I first came to life in the early 2000s. The original concept had the DT&I as part of an expanded Canadian national system, much the same way the Grand Trunk was. However, it was never fully merged, so we had Canadian national painted locomotives with DT&I markings. The Grand Trunk had a similar practice in painting locomotives with the Central Vermont, the DT&I, and the Duluth, Winnipeg, and Pacific in the early 80s. In fact, a photo of DT&I 228, which was the former Bicentennial 1776, is what inspired the whole Modern DT&I concept. As time went on, the Modern DT&I became somewhat popular here on YouTube, so I started to develop more of a backstory to the railroad. It has gone through several evolutions, so I'll focus on how it is today in 2024. Not much of the DT&I's history differs in the Modern DT&I account up until 1929. There marks the first major difference. Instead of selling the DT&I to a Pennsylvania Railroad holding company, Henry Ford would hold on to the DT&I for another 15 years. During that time, he would finish rebuilding much of the south end of the railroad, specifically the Ironton branch and the Summit Hill area. By the time he did sell the DT&I to the Pennsylvania Railroad Holding Company in 1955, the DT&I was a heavy main line from end to end. Before he sold it, Ford ensured the railroad's success by placing a 99-year contract for all auto-related traffic to and from the plants in Detroit to be handled exclusively by the DT&I. The 1950s mark another major departure from prototype history. Jackson and Wellston, Ohio had long been producers of pig iron, but this rapidly declined in the 1950s and 60s. In the Modern DT&I world, the major players in this area merge and heavily invest in their infrastructure. This gives the Modern DT&I a solid base of steel-related traffic in southern Ohio, similar to what you'd see in eastern Pennsylvania. There's even a hot bottle train ran by the mill between the furnaces in Jackson and the rolling mills in Wellston, and a slab train to the mills in Ashland, Kentucky. We'll cover more of this specific operation in a future video, but I still wanted to mention it to show how the south end of the DT&I became profitable in the Modern DT&I world. In the 1980s, the DT&I would find itself a subsidiary of the Grand Trunk and later Canadian National. The Ann Arbor Railroad, already operated by the DT&I, was fully absorbed during this time. The Grand Trunk invested heavily in their new partner, adding GP60s to the roster to help beef up the fleet, as well as SD40s from its own roster. Grand Trunk and Canadian National ownership would last until 2004. During this time, the DT&I also acquired several former B&O and C&O lines, including the former B&O between Parkersburg, Ohio and St. Louis, Missouri. This particular acquisition eliminated the Summit Hill route as a main line, though it is still occasionally used for detours. 2004 saw the sale of the expanded DT&I. A private investor group purchased the railroad as well as the rights to the DT&I identity. That group brought back the iconic orange paint and retained the modernized star logo, which remains today. The new company, called DT&I Holdings, immediately expanded their portfolio by acquiring the Ohio Central family of lines, bringing the DT&I into eastern Ohio and ultimately into Pittsburgh via partnerships with Conrail and the Wheeling and Lake Erie. Additionally, the DT&I acquired a partner stake in the Triple Crown Road Railer service, along with Norfolk Southern and Conrail. Agreements with Conrail and the Wheeling and Lake Erie were made to get the DT&I trains into Conway and Rook yards in Pittsburgh, which in turn connected an isolated piece of former Ohio Central trackage in the Pittsburgh area. There is still one small isolated DT&I holding in Kansas City, that being the Triple Crown facility at the Ford assembly plant there. This is accessed via the Southern Pacific, who is a primary interchange partner. A link to the full system map can be found in the description. Today's DT&I has revived and lived up to the old slogan of "We have the connections." One strategy the railroad employs is keeping connecting tracks open where they cross another railroad. By doing so, multiple traffic opportunities have been easier to negotiate, leading to growth on otherwise barren lines. With growth comes the need for equipment, and the DT&I's roster is fully modernized. We'll cover the roster in a future video in detail. The company also owns and operates several different scenic and tourist trains in the region, and proudly provides restored equipment for each operation and for special occasions. At present, the Concept is placed somewhere between 2014 and 2020. The current layout was started in 2019 here in Las Vegas, Nevada. It is built between a spare bedroom and partially into the loft of our home. It is mainly around the walls with one large center peninsula in the main layout room. There are no grades. The layout height is 42 inches, making it eye level when sitting. The track is Pico Code 83 with some Walthers turnouts where required. The minimum radius is 26 inches on the main line and 20 inches in sidings. Turnouts are number 5 and up. Power is supplied by the 5-amp NCE DCC Power Pro, to which I plan to add an additional booster as the last phase of construction closes out. Control is also Wi-Fi enabled. The bulk of the construction in the main room is completed, with backdrops being the single biggest project left. The second phase of construction is started, but only about 25% complete as of this video. More on that in a future video. Once completed, it should keep 2 to 3 operators busy for a couple of hours, or trains can run continuously if desired. The layout itself is set in a very general central or southern Ohio area. Very few buildings or industries are directly identifiable. This allows me to create a narrative that isn't tied to a physical spot on the layout. For example, the grain elevator could be anywhere in Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, or Michigan, depending on the subject of the video. Motive power and rolling stock are built or picked for a balance of operational excellence and detail. You will mainly find Atlas, Walthers, and Athearn on the layout. Decoders are NCE, and I'm about halfway through converting everything over to Decoder Buddy motherboards so I can add more lighting features such as truck lights at a later date. I try to represent my main partner roads within the consists of trains as much as possible. Thus, you will see an abundance of other road names such as Southern Pacific, Conrail, and Chessie System in the trains. The modern DT&I exists in a world of other what-ifs, so locomotives and cars from these railroads are commonly seen in a modernized state. The layout is built for photography. I've left ample room to put your phone down inside of many of the scenes to take a ground level photo. I've also ensured that the scenery is tough as nails in places where leaning is likely or heavy traffic is likely. The backdrops are high at about 32 inches, so catching the edges of the layout or the backdrops in your photos is easily avoidable. I often find the layout room itself to be an afterthought in many that I visited, so I took extra care to ensure the room is comfortable. Entry points are lift gates, so you don't have to duck anywhere. Extra thick padding in the carpet doubles as drop insurance, tried and true. There are regular height and bar height chairs in the room depending on your preference. There's a workbench with storage. Controls are wireless or Wi-Fi, with throttle holsters located anywhere there's switching to be done. At present, there are 45 overhead spotlights, each containing a LifeX smart bulb. These can be mapped, so I can set one section of the layout to dusk or night, while the other side is still daylight. These also have animation effects, so imitating weather such as passing clouds or lightning is possible. Finally, I've also mounted a TV above the layout, and when I'm in there, it's usually tuned to virtual railfan. There's also a DVD player to watch our favorite railroad programs. While I believe the concept of the modern DT&I has been fully realized at this point, I would say that the layout itself is still in its growth phase. Once track is laid on the newest parts, the mainline run will grow by about 75%. The addition of the stamping plant yard and locomotive and car facilities will more than double the current yard trackage. Thus, the layout can be enjoyed by lifelong enthusiasts and newbies to the hobby alike. I maintain a layout presence on most social media platforms. When I'm working on the layout or a related project, I mainly share updates via Instagram. Just look for the handle @Modern DTI. The Modern DT&I Facebook page has the full concept description, system map, and roster, as well as photos and other updates easy to find all in one spot. I've also included links to these items in the description of this video. I don't follow any particular update schedule for YouTube, so make sure you hit the notification bell to be alerted when I do post. Thank you again for visiting the Modern DT&I. I welcome your comments, questions, and feedback. Also, check out the layout in the June 2024 Railroad Model Craftsman magazine. Until next time, happy railroading!